humanity. Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative.
Welcome to Talking Politics. My name is Robert Press. I am a reporter, as you can see by my official New York City press card. I write for the Bronx Post and Parkchester Times. Both, like this show, are part of Parrot Media Corporation. I also contribute to the Co-op City News and have a blog at www.100%.blogspot.com, along with Facebook pages 100% and What is Going On in Your Community Board. The views expressed on the show are those of the host, any guest, or anyone who is commenting at the bottom of the screen, and not necessarily those of Parrot Media Corporation. Let's go to a quick weather report. Today, Friday, a high of 36. Saturday, it'll get up to 38, with snow changing over to rain overnight with an inch of rain, which would have been a foot of snow. So, and Sunday, the temperature gets up to 50 as the rain ends. And yes, AJ, it is Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's to everybody. And the cold weather will return on Monday with a high of only 29. I'm going to quickly do one or two pieces on the world news and bring on a guest to talk about Black History Month, my good friend, former councilman, Andy King. So let me just talk a little about the Middle East. Hamas announced that it is delaying the hostage release schedule until further notice, claiming Israel violated the terms of the fragile ceasefire agreement multiple times in the last 3 weeks. Hamas' statement came just hours after President Trump said that Palestinians in Gaza would not have the right to return under his takeover proposal, despite official claims that he was calling for temporary relocation of the Palestinian people. Now, as far as Ukraine and Europe responded with shock, anger, and fear to President Trump's news that he'll negotiate with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Ukraine. The Ukraine is deeply worried that its own fate is now out of its own hands, but officials emphasize that it is a sovereign country who must be included in any talks and won't accept an outcome otherwise. Now, let me go to what I was saying at the beginning. This is Black History Month. I could think of almost no one better than my friend, former councilman Andy King. So can we bring on Andy King to say a little bit about Black History Month? Welcome, Andy.
Well, welcome to you, as I've been saying to everybody, keeping it live in 25. So it's going to be a delightful, exciting year in the borough of the Bronx and across the country. And I'm excited to be a part of all of that. You know, as we live, love, serve, forgive, and keep learning. So thank you again for inviting me today on your show.
So let's talk about Black History Month. It's in your ball is in your hands, Andy.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. You know, when it comes to Black History Month, you know, there are the regular conversations that we always inspire to remember the Black folks who've done wonderful work to save America, as well as save their families, save communities, and save neighborhoods. I don't believe that gets enough props, so to speak, in regards to those who are truly on the ground in our neighborhood to keep our neighborhood strong. And I applaud every Black American the so-called Black in America, who's done wonderful work that we always know has changed the climates in all of the world. And if we talk about the notable names that everyone talks about, it, whether it's a Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, or whether it's a Malcolm X, or it's a Harriet Tubman, or it's the organizations like the NAACP or NCNW, or SNCC, all these things had an impact, and these organizations have had their own impact. But the people who've I believe, had the greatest impact on every neighborhood is the grandmother, it's the mother, it's the father, who stood strong in those neighborhoods, stood strong during those times, who went to work, who fed the movement with their volunteerism on what little bit of money they were able to input into these organizations from the jobs they were of the time. And I think those are the conversations that we need to start inspiring our kids to understand when they look at Black history. We can't always just go back 50, 60, 70 years when you have a Black man or Black woman in your house or doing all they can to make sure that you have this food on the table. There's this warmth in the wintertime. There's a roof over your head. There's beds, and if there are any social issues of the day, those who are on the right side of those conversations when it comes to the Black American. And as we have in this time right now, we talk about how Blacks have feared, how Blacks have been successful, how Blacks have been respected, how Blacks have been disrespected. Our story in this globe is one unmatched by any other race in this country and on this globe. So I think when we start talking about the history of the Black person, it can't be lumped in with everybody else's story, because our story is different. We were a set of folks who were brought to this country against our will. Majority of us, our ancestors were brought on against their will. And then we have those who came after. And we have a number of folks who come to this country afterwards and who benefited from the struggles and the death of Black Americans. So I think when we start talking about Black history, let's have a real conversation about what Blacks have done to build this country. And I keep it real. You know me, Robert, I keep it real. If you want to talk about the essence of how this country was built, it was built between Black and white America. And I say everybody else is still coming to America, So at the end of the day, if we can pay respect to that, our Blacks, my family's from the South. So I've witnessed, and they've told me their stories of some of the ugly realities that they had to manage when they were kids. Our kids today don't understand that. They should be fighting each other over some rap lyrics or some TikTok trick talk, and don't even understand that the oppression that happened to Blacks in this America was just based on the color of their skin. It wasn't based on whether or not you were intelligent, whether you were bright, or you were fair, or you were caring, or you were loved. It was just the hatred just based on the color of your skin. Because the goal when we were brought over into this country was to what? To be enslaved. Not that we were slaves, to be enslaved. Back wherever that was part of the African continent. And I keep it real, because when you start talking about scriptures, which we all refer to at any given moment, it gives a clear identity of what the nation of Israel will go to. Who was the original Black? When we start talking, having these a lot of people are afraid of that conversation, so I won't upset your viewers. But at the end of the day, how do we have a real conversation on what Blacks are going through, what Blacks have gone through, and how do we change that narrative that Blacks, again, are not included in everybody else's journey to America?
I mean, you couldn't have said it any better, Andy. Now, one question I have for you, and it's about President Trump with his removal of DEI. Any comments on that?
Well, one of the things I just want to bring to light when you mentioned DEI, again, I go back to when every time there's a conversation of strength, moving forward, or a deliverance of some sense of freedom, everyone climbs in. And then when they climb in from what Blacks have accomplished, what Blacks are looking to, they take ownership of it. And then all of a sudden, their narrative becomes bigger than the Black narrative or the Black agenda or the Black essence. According to the United States Department of Labor, the number one people who have benefited from DEI is white women. Number two, Latinos. Number three, Asian Americans. Number four, veterans. And then number five, the Black American. So how do we become part of the face of DEI? And we're out here lobbying against DEI when we are the last on the top 5 list. This is what we're saying. The DEI has been a misconception, because when you start talking about DEI, air traffic control, I listened and watched the issues of some of the accidents, the air crashes that had occurred, the big air crash down in Maryland. They didn't have enough air traffic controls, and they quoted DEI hindering the recruiting process of talented people. And I say to every one of your viewers, if there were quotas on hiring folks, we still got to hire the best qualified people. And if you have so many spots left open across any employment opportunities based on DEI, then we have to revisit it, because as growing up, we'll take FDNY. FDNY, we know, has a historic component when it comes to the Irish being part of FDNY. If you're not growing up as a Black boy or a quote unquote Hispanic boy about the importance of being a firefighter, it's not even on your career radar. If you're not thought to be an air traffic controller at 10, 12, 15, 18, it's not on your radar to prepare for it. So while they may include rules to say we call some inclusivity to offer a percentage, if we're not prominent in doing the early work, we won't be available later on when the work provides itself to be available. So what happens? We don't hire folks, and we're mad because more white folks are in that spot. Well, let's take any career that Black folks do well at. Well, then let's not have no quotas in that. I'm not mad at having quotas that we got to have inclusivity on things, but we got to be ready when those jobs open up. And we can't tell our kids, or our kids can't be stuck in the world of rap or athletics, and that's the future of success. And we're not having conversations about all the other careers that move this country each and every day and the globe. And then when those positions open up, we're not ready, but we're fighting to say, why don't we have people in those positions?
And one final thing before I let you go and go to a commercial. One of my viewers, Ms. AJ, wrote about your removal from the city council. Any comment on that? Because I know you were never charged with anything. There was nothing that happened, no trial, nothing. You had no due process. So any comments on that for our friend AJ?
There's really not much to say. When it comes to the world of politics, sometimes I say politics, there are strategic moves that happen in that game. If you don't fall in line, they can't control you. They don't care for your belief systems. And then all of a sudden, I remind everybody, you get elected by the residents in the constituents of your district. If your constituents aren't not dissatisfied with the work that you're doing, the people in City Hall didn't hire me, let alone if you're in the Senate, no one's hired you there. So you don't have the right to think that it's okay to do anything against anybody. And I'll end with this. Even in that moment in time when we were in courts, federal courts 2 years ago, the Supreme Court judge said City Court didn't have the right to do what they did to me. They don't have the power to do it. In order to remove somebody, there has to be a higher principle standard to be able to do that. That means only the mayor, only the controller, the public advocate, or law enforcement has the power to remove a city council. City council can't remove city council, So they took it upon themselves to say we're judge, jury because of their own politics. And I know that I did a lot of work, and I did a lot of good work. And yeah, they can't prove anything because they just said it. And I end with this. Like I said, hey, listen, you can't take a red apple, call it a pineapple, and then have a conversation on the pineapple and make a decision on the pineapple. But you said it was a pineapple, which everyone knew was an apple.
All right.
That's really the reality of things.
I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for answering the questions. Thank you for the little dialogue about Black History Month. And I hope now that there's 4 years that we may see you running again for the city council. I know you have filed with the Campaign Finance Board, but you don't want to announce anything because you're still in discussions. Am I right?
I thank you for the respect of the privacy as my family, friends, and constituents continue to have these conversations about what that looks like. So any of my friends or anybody who enjoys the work that I've done or just respect, and I appreciate that. And I will talk to you more, Robert, about what that future beholds, and I look for us to continue to have a spirited conversation, because at the end of the day, it's about making sure that people get the proper service, the proper respect, and the proper representation for those who've asked for their vote.
Okay, thank you for coming on, Andy. And Mr. Producer, can we go to a commercial now?
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post. Changing the reality. Changing the narrative.
Okay, welcome back. Before I bring on my next guest, yes, there are two guests today. I just want to go through a little more news. It appears that President Trump is ordered security clearance stripped from a new list of people just days after revoking Joe Biden's access to classified information and secure federal buildings. Others who are targeted are New York's Attorney General Letitia James and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who have joined the group of 8 Democrats that Trump plans to punish by revoking any access to classified information, barring them their entry to federal facilities, which would mean that they would not be able to set foot in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District in Manhattan or the Eastern District in Brooklyn. And other Trump targets include Biden's former National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, Biden's former Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco. I'm not going to go into reasons why. Andrew Weissman, who was the lead prosecutor in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russiagate investigation, lawyer Mark Zaid, and Norm Eisen, who was special counsel to the Democratic-led House Judiciary Committee. I want to talk a little about, Governor Kathy Hochul has rejected a request from Louisiana to extradite a doctor who was charged with prescribing abortion pills to a pregnant mother. A Texas judge ordered the same doctor to stop prescribing and sending abortion pills to patients in Texas and ordered her to pay $1,000 in fines. $100,000 in fines. And this is going to be the last item before I bring on my guest. Governor Hochul has told a news that she was on MSNBC. She said, let me tell you from a couple angles. This is about Mayor Eric Adams. One is that it is unbelievable that the president for the Department of Justice in Washington to interfere in the case the way they did. Her husband was a 30-year federal prosecutor. Barack Obama made him a U.S. attorney. You can look at what happened here. There is nothing that's supposed to happen in our system of justice. Governor Hochul has called the Bondi administration, that Department of Justice, already showing that they're corrupt. The governor on that show read a letter penned by now former Manhattan U.S. Attorney Daniel Sasson that claimed Adams' legal term offered a quid pro quo in hopes of seeing his federal charges dismissed. Hochul's comments came on the heels of her second-in-command, Lieutenant Antonio Delgado, calling Adams to resign, accusing the Big Apple leader of being in Trump's pocket. But Hochul's office, in a stinging rebuke, made clear that Delgado doesn't speak for the governor. The lieutenant governor does not and has not ever spoken on her behalf. Pardon me. Let me introduce now my second guest, an old friend, Joel Rivera. This is not the Joel Rivera who is the son of former Assemblyman Jose Rivera. It is Joel Rivera, candidate for 13th City Council District. He's moved up into the Pelham Gardens section from the South Bronx. He's been here. Let me let Joel tell you all about himself. So, Joel, why don't you tell us?
Hi, how's everybody doing? Welcome. First of all, I want to thank my friend Robert. Most of us know him as Bob Press. Mainstream media usually only covers certain stories, and whether it's Fox News or CNN, they come with a lot of baggage. And one thing I really appreciate about Robert is that he gives you the information, he'll give you his opinion, but he lets you make your own decision. And he covers a lot of stories and issues. Perfect example, having Andy talking about Black History Month. He a wide range of that are important to the community, similar to Bronx 12. So I want to thank you and the platform first for keeping the community informed and letting us know about stories that typically mainstream media doesn't cover. My name is Joel Rivera. I want to correct you, Bob. I didn't just move into the
No, I
district.
understand. That's why I let you talk.
I've lived in Pelham Gardens my whole adult life. First with my father on Teeman, then we moved to Buck, and then I got married, and I lived with my wife on 175th Street and University, which is the area in the South Bronx that my family has 5 charter schools and several churches. My whole teenage and adult life, I've been an advocate fighting for the least of these. My full-time profession was I worked at NICA, a nonprofit agency helping homeless families get permanent housing. I'm the system's worst nightmare. I worked for NICA for 10 years, so I'm very familiar with DHS and how they work and all their bureaucracy and red tape and things that just don't make any sense. I'll give you one quick example. The families that I worked with, they would tell them, you need to get off public assistance, get a job, and become a upstanding member of society. So I would work with them to get that done, and it was challenging, but a lot of them got that done. Once they got a full-time job, that was the right hand. The left hand would tell them, oh, you make too much money and you no longer qualify for the housing subsidy that we gave you to move out of the shelter. It's just one example of how DHS is broken, just like the Board of Ed and many other agencies. Continuing my story, I saved up for several years, me and my wife struggling and not taking vacation. And she always wanted to live in Pelham Gardens, is where my father lived, where I was raised. She used to come visit me and she saw the quality of life in the 13th. And like many people that live in other areas, it's their dream to live in Van Ness or Morris Park or Throgs Neck or Riverdale. And there's nothing wrong with working hard your whole life and getting your slice of the American dream. And we were able to do that. We suffered and we struggled, and we bought a home over 10 years ago. We live on Mickle. Before that, I lived on Teeman and Burke as a teenager. So I always lived in the area. Uh, I became a licensed real estate broker, entrepreneur, businessman, and fortunate with hard work, I was able to retire from my 9 to 5 in the rat race. And I left the public sector, and I wasn't really involved in politics directly. I ran for, in 2009, there was a special election against Vanessa Gibson, and she got the Democratic line, and I ran as a conservative. I'm very conservative. I always have been, but I'm a conservative Democrat, lifelong Democrat, was vice chair of the Democratic Party. But I felt that she wasn't what was right for the community. And they gave her the Democratic line, and I ran as a conservative. I did very well. I had the most history of votes in the Conservative Party until recently, where they reorganized and remobilized. And then in 2015, I ran in the Democratic primary. I came in second against Richie Torres. And I have friends in the Republican Party, and they said, Joel, we have views that are in line with you. Would you mind representing us? And I said, absolutely. They told me that they were going to work with my youth and give them opportunities to work at polling sites and work within the party. And anything that's good for the community, I'm willing to do. I say all of this to say that I have no alliance to any party lines. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, conservative, working family party, a donkey, a mule, an elephant, a monkey. I'm not into any of those things. What I care about is my area, hardworking families getting the shorter end of the stick and doing what's best for my community. And unfortunately, a lot of the candidates in this race are typical politicians that have ties and alliances to different groups. Without mentioning any names, anybody that's familiar with the race knows that one of the main candidates is an operative of a union, and her loyalty is going to be to union needs. The current incumbent husband and father are connected to the Republican Party and the Board of Elections. So I'm not saying that those will determine what people do, but the point is their priority isn't Bronx residents. Their priority is the associations they're aligned to. I'm not associated to anybody. I never planned to get back into politics. know that I've been living a very interesting life, helping lead Cuba, Colombia, Latin America, Haiti. Um, my family, my father is Bishop Raymond Rivera, 40 years of service, respected in all areas. And, I try to follow his footsteps and serve the community. What I noticed, the reason I got back in is I'm doing this traveling, I'm doing business, I'm going to Miami once a month, and all of a sudden, one shelter, two shelter, three shelters. I said, what the hell is going on here? I didn't work my whole life like most people to get my slice of the American dream to have our community changed. And then recently they told me that they're going to build one of the highest buildings in the Bronx.
Well, I'm going to get into that later. So,
Okay. But long story short, I care about hardworking families. I think there's mismanagement in government, and enough is enough. I'm tired of being too poor to be rich and too rich to be poor. Now, what does that mean? I'm too rich to be poor because I don't qualify for Section 8, for welfare, for any of these government programs. But me and the rest of the hardworking people have to pay our taxes to these programs that are mismanaged and misrun. Do I believe we need these programs? Absolutely. Do I believe we need DHS? Absolutely. Do I think it makes sense that we're paying $500 a night to put people that just got here in fancy hotels that I can't afford to stay in? Do I want my money to go to that? Absolutely not. Do I believe in public assistance? Absolutely. Do I think that a grandmother, mother, and daughter should be on public assistance? Absolutely not. Do I think we should tell an 18-year-old that instead of getting a good trade or a good job, they should get on public assistance so that the family could get more money? No. So our systems are broken, from the Board of Education to the NYPD to HPD. And we need to fix that, because our tax dollars go to that, and the programs are not doing what they're supposed to do. And the middle class built this city, and hardworking class people that work 40 hours, and we got to choose now if we're going to pay our light bill or put gas in the car. I'm tired of paying $8 for gas. I'm tired of paying $12 for eggs. And I'm tired of seeing my money going to programs that don't work. And people need to realize that there's certain areas in New York City that are very unique. Bensonhurst, Spanish Harlem, and the 13 fits into that category. Van Ness, Morris Park, and Throgneck comes from hardworking people. Sometimes it took generations for us to get into that area. And we're not going to just let the mayor or outsiders or Kathy and the governor and people decide what happens in our community. We're just not going to stand for that.
Well, let me just cut you off, because the Metro North stations are coming in. They were coming in since the 1990s, but this mayor decided he wants more housing here, right next to there, and he's put 6,000 or more units in the 13th Council District. Size of the buildings, one building is of undetermined height. Now, AJ asked about the community boards, and AJ, the council member, only recommends people to the community board. It's the borough president who appoints them. So it's up to the borough president to change the board. I know you have a problem with Community Board 11. I'm going to probably sue Community Board 11 for what happened with the district manager exposing confidential information that shouldn't have been exposed. But let's get back to your race. Okay, there are 7 people now in the race, and everybody knows, including the insiders, who the Bronx Democratic Party is going to endorse. It's like you said, the union person from 32 BJ, who gives out $1 million a year now, the union, to elected officials or other PACs to help certain people. And Bronx members, people in the Bronx, have gotten money from this union, which are people who are associated with the Bronx Democratic Party. So, I mean, I told the chair of the Bronx Democratic Party 3 weeks ago, I already know who your candidate is. It's this woman from the union. And he goes, oh, no, we're going to have an open process. Has he called you to interview you?
They have not called me. They have not interviewed me. Let me just first say that I consider the county leader, acquaintance and friend of mine, but I'm not happy with the way that they're handling things in the Bronx. I'm not happy with the way they're making decisions. And honestly, that's not a priority to me. What's a priority to me is the 13th. I want to work with hardworking, middle class and working class families that care about our community and will not stand for this. I will be organizing protests, rallies, and demonstrations. I also want to send a message to the county leader and the mayor and the borough and anybody else that's trying to do these projects. Me and Bob and most of us are hardworking, regular residents that go to community boards and go to meetings. There is an element of our community that I'm connected with that don't go to meetings and march to a different drum. And they've assured me that if these projects come into our community, it's not going to be smooth. And I don't want a conflict in our community, but these are blue collar guys that will not stand for nonsense. And if they don't want their food trucks getting messed with when they come to deliver food and incidents with their employees, I employ them to talk with us more before they make decisions. Because if not, if they open these facilities, the people that I'm talking about assure me that they're going to need the National Guards at these facilities.
It's already happening.
I don't support that or believe in that, but I'm connected to my Italians, my Albanians, my Puerto Ricans, and this is a war to them. And this is their life.
Joel, it's already happened with Westchester Square, where the 200 single men's shelter opened up. Westchester Square is not what it used to be. People are being asked for money. But let's get into, like Malcolm says, let's get into a couple of the issues. Bronx Community Board 10 is having a public hearing on February 25th at 7 p.m. At the Nat Silverberg Fieldhouse, 915 Hutchinson River Parkway, on the Monsignor Scanlon campus. Now, the hearing is about Bally's proposal to build a casino and hotel in Ferry Point Park, which is City of New York Parks property. What is your opinion on the casino?
You know, I got to speak to stakeholders. I think there are other priorities. I'm not saying that I'm against it, but I'm more concerned. Any development, let me say this, any development that comes into the 13th, there has to be a community benefit. I was part of the Yankee Stadium negotiations, and we got the shorter end of the stick, but at least they promised us things. You know, a park, access to this. Where's our free tennis courts? Where's our free weight rooms or places for our kids to play? I'm a real estate developer also, and I know how much money you make off development. So if they want to make millions of dollars off our community, we need to get something tangible for the residents.
Let me ask you a question then. When the water filtration plant was built by the city of Van Cortlandt Park, Mayor Bloomberg, who is the businessman, said, well, we'll give you $240 million for Bronx parks to be spent. And I believe they finally spent the last of the money a couple of years ago. And former borough president Ruben Diaz Jr., when I saw him one time at Soundview Park, goes, this park couldn't have been renovated without the filtration money. It was $240 million for 12 acres of land in Van Cortlandt Park. Bally's is proposing for 17.4 acres of land in Ferry Point Park 20 years later to give the city $100 million. Do you think that's fair?
Absolutely not. 100% not. Any negotiations that I'm a part of, it's not going to be money that's to a random general pot. It will be allocated for the area of the development. So if we get, if we agree to a development, we want something that's going to go to a Van Ness Home Association or money that's going to go to a project or pot that we control or that we can negotiate something that's beneficial for our children and residents in the community. I'm not looking for money to go into a big pot that we got to deal with outsiders. We need local community control and local community influence. And any decisions that are made need to be made with the key stakeholders in that local community.
Now, they were saying about Bronx jobs, but with this water filtration plant, they also talked about Bronx jobs. And the only jobs that Bronx people got was security guards in the years. And it was a $3 billion project, too, because the unions who built it said they're not members of the union. They're not even apprentices. So we can only give them security guard jobs.
That's not accurate, first of all, because I have a lot of union friends and they got their friends and family members into the union quickly. They spearhead the process. They can make them an apprentice very quickly, and they know how to move the strings when it's beneficial to them. So let's be clear.
I'm giving you what happened at the Croton water filtration plant.
Well, the problem is that usually we have career politicians that care about their own reelection and getting big checks from these people, and they don't care about the local residents. I don't have that issue. I didn't want to be an elected official. I was forced to because of the mismanagement of New York City and because they're disrespecting and trying to change the dynamic of the community that I worked almost a decade saving money to move into. So those people negotiate their best interests and their friends and their donors' best interests and not the residents' best interests. That will not happen in any negotiation that I'm a part of. I'm their worst nightmare, Bob. I worked for Adolfo Carrion when I was 19 as a community liaison. I served vice chair of the Democratic Party. I worked with the Republicans. I worked with the conservative. I worked with shelters. And I'm an entrepreneur businessman with a father who served the community for 40 years. I went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C. So I speak every language. And I'm a Bronx kid from the hood. So I speak the streets. I would study formal education. And I speak Wall Street and business. And I know the language of politics. So they can speak any language they want. They're not going to run circles around me. And they're not going to make the residents of the 13th second-class citizens and not a priority. We're not going to that.
You mentioned a tall building that's going to be built here. So let me get into that, because Wednesday night, former Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. led some people from Montefiore Hospital, where he's now Senior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives for the hospital. They gave a presentation of a life science building they want to build. Originally, this building was supposed to be in the Jacoby parking lot on Eastchester Road. They have moved it to the South Campus or outside the South Campus of Einstein Hospital by Morris Park Avenue and a couple of the local streets. And as they were talking about it, Diaz is saying, oh, how great this will be. People will come from all over to come here. We'll have over 400 beds. The top half of this will be for people who are coming here. We'll have all sorts of machinery. So when it came to the size of the building, he said, well, it'll be 25 stories. People there went and said, what? 25 stories? And then he explained, well, it's 25 medical stories because we have equipment that is higher than the 10-foot residential. If you look in your home, it's only 10 feet, including the floors. All right. So he said these floors will be about 17 feet high, and the total height of the building will be 454 feet. Now, I looked up the tallest building in the Bronx. The tallest building in the Bronx is the River Park Towers, which is 26 feet smaller than that. They're not even, so this will be the tallest building in the Bronx. And I lived in Riverdale when Montefiore tried to propose an 11-story building. They then revised it with community opposition to 6 stories, and the community still said no, and Montefiore pulled out finally. Now, I said to Diaz, I know you can lower the height. So his answer was, after he thought, he says, well, yeah, we could lower the height, but then we won't have the quality. Okay.
That's a lot. First of all, let me start out by saying this, Bob. I am a strong supporter and component of services for our NYPD and for veterans and for current military. They deal with the ugliest side of society and don't get the services that they need. And it's one of the things we need to fix. You shouldn't be risking your life for this country and come home and not be able to get quality services. You shouldn't be risking your life protecting us every single day and worried that you might not come home to your wife and kids and not get the mental health services that you need. So I'm a strong supporter of mental health services for the NYPD, current military, and veterans. That being said, as a developer, the reason they want more floors is the more floors you have, the more money you make. Development is based on the amount and size of the building, and that determines how much you get paid in development fees. So anything about quality service is nonsense. They're trying to...
I'm going to stop you for a moment, because what you said about the money is, he said they want people who have private insurance, because they only get from Medicaid or Medicare 70 to 80 cents on a dollar. People with private insurance will give them the full dollars. All right, so that's what you're saying, basically.
Yeah, no. That's another point to address. What I'm saying is, in real estate development, if I put 30 units in a building, my development fee is X dollars. If I could put 50 units, my development fee is much more. So your development fee is based on how many units you could put in the development. So they want to make buildings as big as possible because it's a bigger paycheck in development fees, is what I'm saying, for the agency. So when we build a charter school and housing, depending on how many units we put in the building is how much my nonprofit gets with the developer. Most people don't know this, and they don't share this with the public. So they want to do big facilities because they make more money in development fees. On top of that, you bring up a great point, which is a lot of our veterans have Medicare, Medicaid. So how are you going to build a facility to serve veterans and say you're only going to take them if they have private insurance? And what percent of residents in our area are veterans? They need to do a demographic study in the Bronx and see where the most veterans live and put that facility in that area. And they need to talk with us and figure out what's the best location and if it makes sense. It seems like nobody in the community wants this. They're going to do what they always do and cut deals with a few people and try to push it down our throat. Well, I have a wake-up call. Those days are over. We never accepted that in the 13th. We fell asleep at the realm for a little while, but I'm talking with key stakeholders on both sides of the tracks, legit and not legit, and we not letting that happen. Over our dead body will these developments take place.
Okay, I'd like to continue with our conversation, but I see I've run over, so I have to say thank you, Joel Rivera, for coming on the show. I want to probably invite you back in the future, and all of your opponents, I invite you. John Perez, Fiona DuPont, Reitz, Jacqueline Torres, David Diaz, Shirley Aldebal even. I invite you to come on the show, just like Joel Rivera has.
Yeah, don't mention other people when I'm on the show, okay? We just talking about me. Now I'm just playing.
All right, and I want to thank you for coming on, Joel, and I want to thank Andy King for his little synopsis of Black History Month, and I want to thank everybody for watching, Malcolm for commenting, AJ, and even Kevin Diola. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Hopefully I'll have one of the other candidates, and thank you again to Joel. Have a good day.
God bless you. Thank you, Bob. Take care.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted, and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your products and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York Parrot, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the websites they trust the most, Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our new site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York Parrot is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voiceless.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative.
Keep watching the politics